Gluten-free cakes often get a bad rap for being a little bit too dry and difficult to bake, especially when compared to traditional wheat-based cakes. But this doesn't always have to be the case, and this gluten-free cake we're baking today is just as easy to make as any other cake recipes, and will actually stay moist for longer than most cakes. This is because we'll be taking advantage of all the natural oils and fats in almonds and hazelnuts. This recipe has taken a lot of try and error to develop, but it's all been worth it because honestly, it's a really good one, so let's get baking. We'll start off by beating some softened butter on medium speed for about 3 minutes. This step is super important to make sure we get enough air and volume into the batter. Once the butter is looking fluffy and pale just like this, we can slowly pour in our beaten eggs. And to help it come together a little quicker, let's also add 2 tablespoons of almond flour. Okay, let's talk about almond flour. They're also known as ground almond in some countries, and I know technically there is a difference in whether or not the almond skin is used, but for the purpose of this recipe, you can use either. Ground almond has a few amazing properties which makes it perfect for cakes. It has a lot of healthy oils which are released during the baking process. This is great for keeping the cake moist, and more importantly, it smells and tastes amazing. There's no need to sift the ground almonds at all, just add it straight into the batter and mix it for a minute or 2 until it's fully combined. At this point, we also want to add in some gluten-free baking powder. Most brands nowadays are gluten-free, but it's always worth checking. Line your baking tins and split your batter evenly across the 2. I use a scale for this just to make sure I'm extra precise. Then bake at 165 degrees Celsius or 330 Fahrenheit for 35 to 40 minutes. Notice that we're baking at quite a low temperature, because unlike wheat flour, we want to cook our almonds gently and slowly to prevent all that lovely almond oil and fat from releasing out all at once. Use a skewer, or in my case a chopstick, to see if the cake is cooked all the way through, and leave it to cool completely to temperature before removing. What this will do is let the cake contract and pull away naturally from the tin. Okay, whilst we wait for the cake to cool, we can move on to our frosting. I often find that American style frosting is a little bit too sweet, so for this we're going to use a bit of cream cheese to help balance it out. Dump the softened butter, Nutella and cream cheese into a mixing bowl and mix for about 5 minutes on medium to low speed. If you don't have Nutella or if you don't like Nutella, you can use any kind of chocolate spread here, but I love hazelnuts and it also complements the almond batter really well. After 5 minutes, the mixture should have more volume, but it'll also be a little bit soft just like this. So to give it some structure and help it come together, we'll add some icing sugar. This is also known as powdered sugar in America. And whip on a low speed for another 2 minutes or so. Remember to go slowly, otherwise the icing sugar will go everywhere. Okay, time to start building the cake. Confession time, I'm actually not that great at frosting cakes, so I like to keep things simple. Start by putting down a little bit of frosting to help the base of the cake stick. Then, using a spatula, gently coat the top of the layer with the frosting. Having a good, smooth turntable really helps here. It's up to you how thick you want it, but I don't really like things too sweet, so I'm going to go for a thin layer. Next, place the second layer of the cake on top to sandwich the frosting together. A lot of the pros will apply a thin coating of frosting at this point and let it set. This is called a crumb coat to stop the crumb from the cake from falling out and mixing into the outer layer of the frosting. I'm going to skip this step here because the ground almond cake doesn't really have a lot of loose crumbs. Start with a big dollop of frosting at the top of the cake and slowly even it out with your spatula while spinning the turntable. Eventually the frosting will make its way to the side just like this. You can stop at this point and start coating the sides. You can keep on using your spatula for this, but I find it easier to swap to a scraper just like this one. Keep your hand steady and just gently rotate to get a smooth finish. The top looks a little bit bland, so I'm going to use my spatula and gently again rotate the turntable to make this swirly pattern. And that's the difficult bit done. This takes a little bit of practice, so take your time. As you can see, mine isn't perfect either, but it's okay because we're going to cover up any imperfections in the next step. For now though, put the cake in the fridge for about 20 to 30 minutes for it to set. Now for the finishing touches, I'm going to cover up the sides with some crushed hazelnut which I bought from the supermarket, and then I'm also going to decorate and garnish the top with some whole hazelnuts. In my case, the whole hazelnuts were a little bit too big, so I've crushed them up and smashed them up in a Ziploc bag. This is just to stop it from going everywhere. Once you're done, just sprinkle it on top just like this, and the hazelnuts should stick with very little pressure. And with that, we're done. Let's cut into it and see how it looks. This is honestly one of my favourite cakes to bake because it's so rich and decadent without being too sweet. And if you put this in a cake container, this should at least last you 3 to 4 days without it drying out, although I usually eat it way before then. And there you go, gluten-free cakes doesn't always have to be dry or difficult to make. I've been Isaac, I hope you enjoyed this recipe and I'll see you in the next video.